Everybody. This is a live Q&A with Doug Schoon, who is an internationally regarded cosmetic scientist and has, contributed to so many textbooks, papers, conferences, classes on helping us to understand our ingredients scientifically and with simplistic common sense in the beauty industry. And Doug just recently has put out or is just releasing his third book. Do you want to just go ahead and show us your book real quick before we get started, and we can show at the end?
Downstairs in my laboratory. So,
Ah, that's okay.
as soon as you said that, I thought, oh no, I left it in the lab.
That's okay. Well, he just wrote his third book, and we're all awaiting the opportunities to buy it. It is for the nail industry, but there are sections that are very, very appropriate for lash artists to read, and especially with LED UV lashing becoming currently so popular. And I know you guys all have questions, so let us know what your questions are. I have been culling questions from people. They've been writing me DMs and sending me messages on Facebook and Instagram. So we have a bank of questions we know that people are wondering about. And if you guys have any questions, please go right ahead and put them in the chat. Or if you want to go ahead and put your camera on and ask Doug directly, we see you and we hear you. Whichever you are most.
I love questions, so please.
Yeah, whatever you are most comfortable with, because this is for you guys. This is not slanted towards any brand or any company. This is pure science, pure education. It's pure heart for the lash industry, and hope you do enjoy. Okay, well, we talked yesterday, Doug, you and I, about a couple of the questions that I've been calling. So I'll go ahead and start, and I'll just keep an eye on the chat here for anybody writing in questions or wanting to kind of raise their hand and pop in and ask. So one of the first things that is on everybody's mind is the safety of UV and LED lashes and the buzzy news about the TPO ban in the European Union. So should we be afraid of TPO? What is TPO?
Well, TPO, the short answer is no. TPO is a photoinitiator. What TPO does, it plays a very important role. When UV light hits TPO, it absorbs the UV light and it turns it into energy that starts the polymerization process. And by that, I mean it causes the hardening process. It causes the adhesive to harden and hold everything into place. So the photoinitiator is the key. Without that, nothing is going to happen. So it's literally probably the most important ingredient in the product. Typically, they're used only in small percentages, 1 to 3%. They're extremely expensive and they're highly efficient, so you don't need very much of it. Now, TPO has been used widely in the dental industry, many industries for many, many years. In fact, it was reviewed back in 2014 by the European Scientific Committee that reviews ingredients to make sure that they're safe. And in 2014, they determined that TPO was safe to use up to 5% for curing products. Well, everyone thought TPO is the ideal ingredient then. It really does a very effective job. So people started formulating it very heavily with it. Then along comes another bit of news last year where someone had done a study where they fed huge amounts of TPO to rats for long periods of time. And they found out that the male rats, their sperm count went down. Okay, well, typically this kind of information then would be given back to the scientific community. The community would review that information and determine, does that mean that there's a safety risk to people using 1 to 3% in lash adhesives? But that didn't happen. No, that didn't happen. Because there's regulations in Europe that say that once this kind of information comes out, everything stops. The scientists are muted. They put muzzles on. They're not allowed to say anything. They're not allowed to review the text. They're not allowed to see if this even is relevant to cosmetic use. It becomes automatically banned. So the science doesn't matter anymore. The regulations step in. And the reason all this occurred is because of fear-based NGO groups or fear-based activist groups in Europe push to have this kind of ban, automatic ban put in because they're based on fear. And this is all a fear-based regulation. There's really no evidence at all that says that TPO is unhealthy or unsafe for these uses. But it doesn't matter because the regulations have kicked in and now the science is out. It's all about the regulation. So long answer, short answer again, TPO is not harmful likely to lashers. There's no evidence to suggest that it is. If it were, I'd be the first person to say we shouldn't be using it. But actually the evidence points in the opposite direction. It points to it's probably safe and just been caught up in this legal snafu in the European Union.
Yeah, unfortunately, we thought that the UK was also going to follow suit and do the same date, September 1st, 2025 ban, but I think they've put that off now for 1 year. Hopefully they're looking into it because I think it's one of the most versatile photo initiators that you can mix with cyanoacrylate. When you read about the ones that are commonly used, there's a couple of them, there's a few of them, and I'm sure that there will be new ones developed as well as companies and chemists kind of scramble to help the industry stay afloat, whether it's nail industry or lash industry, anyone who uses it in the beauty industry for cosmetics purposes. So
Problem is it creates a slippery slope that now we find a new one and someone comes up with a bad piece of evidence. The evidence isn't even reviewed. It's an automatic ban. That's the real problem. This isn't about science or safety. This is about regulations that don't consider the science or safety or don't even listen to the scientists. That's why this regulation is not a good one.
Crystal wrote in a question here and she said, she's concerned about how to read light test reports correctly. She sees that many companies in Finland and Estonia, they sell the UV lights. And when she checks their test reports, they claim that the light is so safe and the numbers are so low that it wouldn't even be able to cure lash adhesive, according to Finland Radiation and Nuclear Authority's STUK tests. So she says, does this mean that the report is misleading? What should she think of that? On top of that, the labs that are on these reports, they don't have the proper certification to run these tests. So this is kind of like what we talked about yesterday about bogus reports versus legitimate.
Well, there's a boatload of bogus reports out there. I've seen them. And that's a real problem because they're misleading not just consumers, they're misleading distributors that are selling these devices. Careful who you buy from and make sure you trust your sources. Some companies do just fake testing. They don't do any testing at all. Some do legitimate testing following the international standards. There's a couple of international standards, IEC 62471 and the RPT 27. The RP 27. These standards spell out exactly how the testing has to be done, and and what equipment needs to be used. So if the right equipment is used, which is extremely expensive equipment, we're talking $50,000 for some of these devices, and you're going to get the right results. But a lot of the laboratories doing this testing don't have this kind of equipment, but they'll put out, some of the laboratories, I'll say, but they'll put out reports anyway that look official but are not. You want to make sure it's coming from a reputable laboratory. Hard for people in the industry to do. That's why you need to trust your distributor and make sure your distributor is getting it from a reputable laboratory. And you want to make sure it adheres to the international standard, 62471, or the RP27 standard. If it's not adhering to those standards, then it's probably just something that a test someone made up. The other thing to watch out for is the distance testing. Most of these standards call for a certain specific distance, which is about 7 inches. These lamps should really be tested at closer distances that are realistic to the lash industry. Based on the reports I've seen, though, the good news is the real low-level, low-light-producing devices are likely very safe, as long as you don't get your eye right up next to them or look directly into them. The only ones I'm really concerned about are the big gooseneck ones that just project giant beams of light down onto the face. I've never seen any safety testing that suggests that those are safe, and I'd like to see it if that exists, someone can send them to me, and I might change my opinion. But I think the large gooseneck lamps that hover over the face are probably of concern, while the low light, very small LEDs that emit a low level of UV are probably very safe. But I would recommend lashers wear protective eyewear that blocks UV, so they're not going to overexpose their eyes to UV. Because I know lashers sometimes get their faces right down next.
They do. Instead of sitting
I
up
don't
with,
recommend.
yeah, with sitting with proper ergonomics versus getting in there and you're creating neck pain and kind of shortening your career by getting in there and twisting
Even
and
more than
getting too
that, you're
close.
breathing vapors, getting in your eyes. Your eyes are irritated all the time. People wonder why your eyes are irritated. Move back a few more inches, and I bet you they might not be. So the
That's
closer you get to the work, the more potential you have for overexposing yourself to either vapors or to UV. Whereas both can be managed if you work safely and ergonomically, as Jill pointed out.
Yeah. So since you went ahead and mentioned vapors and putting our face right into and breathing into the vapors, um, at many of the conferences that I've seen you speak at, you talked about the importance of proper ventilation, and we get into vapors. Um, there is a little bit of buzz in the industry, like on social media, talking about, are they vapors or are they fumes? And does it really matter what it is? What is it? That they say it's formaldehyde, and it's
Oh,
fumes, and it's. I was always taught to say vapors, but I understand that there's both. I'll let you go ahead and help us
generally,
out.
when people use the word fumes, they're trying to scare you. Notice that they're not trying
Yeah.
to say, "Oh, look at the fumes coming off of your perfume is so fumy and wonderful." No, they only use fumes when they want to frighten you. A fume is a vapor that either condenses in the air because, like, you're welding, or coming out of the back of a car engine, or even coming out of a candle. Those are fumes. That's smoke and vapor mixed together. Technically, you can say that cyanoacrylates do both. They do a little bit of both. They're mostly vapors, but they can polymerize in the air and form a little white powder. So technically, that makes them a fume. But because of that, it doesn't make them any safer, any more dangerous. It's just a word that is misused. I think the best word to use would be vapors, because practically mostly what you're inhaling are going to be the vapors, and that's really what you want to protect yourself from. The particles, any particles that form in the air to create a fume, are probably inert and not going to harm you that much. So it's really vapors you want to protect yourself from. But I agree with Jill. I don't think the word matters what you call it. In either case, you need to have a good ventilation, which is easy to do. There's some great ventilation systems out there, or wear a mask to prevent yourself from inhaling excessive amounts of these little tiny dust particles. They won't help you with vapors at all. But if some people want to wear these dust masks, that's okay. But remember, they do not help you with vapors at all. Vapors go right through a dust mask. So get a good, high quality ventilation system for your salon that captures the vapors and dust right at the source, called local source capture systems. That's the very best you can do.
Yeah. You can look online, guys, and Google that local source capture systems, and you can find some very, very good brands out there, and they're made for salons. So they're not an industrial application that you would borrow from, but they're actually made for beauty salons and beauty work. So that would be great. When we talk about the masks, those disposable, you know, paper masks that look like Grey's Anatomy or whatever, they don't refine or filter out those super fine VOCs, but do like N95 and N99 masks would work if someone develops a sensitivity as the practitioner, being around this. They might have reached their threshold, their overexposure threshold. So
well, the dust masks you're talking about that doctors wear are worthless. They do nothing at all. They're really invented so the doctor sneezes, he doesn't sneeze on you.
mhm.
Because they're so poor, they made these N95 masks. That's why N95 masks exist, because the doctor's masks are so crappy. So an N95 mask or higher, N99 or FFP2 in Europe, all these masks will protect you from dust, which is why they're called dust masks. They're not called vapor mask. They don't prevent you from inhaling any vapors at all. The vapors will go right through them. So I understand what you're saying, Jill. I think that they are useful to wear if you want to protect yourself from dust. But if you want to protect yourself from the vapors, you should use a local source capture. That's the way to prevent yourself from overexposure to excessive amounts of vapors. And remember, it's not inhaling the vapor that's dangerous. It's inhaling excessive amounts for long periods of time. That's what we call overexposure. Overexposure can maybe happen in one day. Your eyes will get irritated. But when overexposure happens day after day after day after day for long periods, that's when allergic reactions and other things can begin to develop. So it's really important to take this all seriously and make sure you have good ventilation so you're reducing your exposure to safe levels.
Yeah. Lash artists are, they report on Facebook groups when we're chatting with each other and, asking others, do you experience the same thing as I'm experiencing? They experience all kinds of, not all of them, but they can experience all kinds of symptoms, including like their nose running when they're working, not being able to smell as acutely after a long day of lashing, things like that. So you have to pay attention to what your body is telling you, just like the client has to pay attention to what their body is telling them when they apply cosmetics, whether they're going to be sensitized to something or not. So
this is called sensory irritation. I'm glad you brought this up, Jill. The sensory irritation is one of the very first things that will happen. When you're overexposing yourself, it won't be, well, I didn't even know I was overexposing myself. Oh no, that won't be the case.
There's breadcrumbs.
First thing you'll know is your eyes will burn. Well, burning eyes, your eyes are telling you you are too close to the source of these vapors. Then runny nose, irritated throat. These are all your sensory, your senses are being irritated and activated by these vapors. It's not giving you a brain tumor, no. But what it is, it's an early warning system. It's your body saying you are overexposing yourself. Don't do this for long. We'll let you slide for a day or two. But after a while, we're going to start ramping up the symptoms to make you pay attention to us. So it's your body talking to you when you do that. Don't ignore it. Your body's trying to help you. Pay attention to it and get some information about how to work more safely because your body's asking you to do that.
Yeah. And I think taking breaks and stepping outside is great because on the SDS, on the safety data sheets, it says, if you experience sensitivities to any of these types of products, to remove the person from the environment and, get them in fresh air, and then you will be fine. So it's good for us to take a break. It's not good for us to do 10 clients back to back to back without.
Ergonomically, it's good to take a break. Exactly. But so yes, you should always take breaks between clients, wash your hands between clients, of course, the basic simple things. But the ventilation can't be overstressed. If you want to have a long-term healthy career, that's the number one thing you can do to protect yourself over time.
Yeah, agree. Guys, I just wanted to encourage you, if you have any questions at all, go right ahead and type them into the chat box. And or if you prefer, grab my attention by using the raise hand function, and I'll keep trying to look, and we'll make sure that your questions are answered and directed. So, okay. So UV adhesives, are they gels? Are they resins? Are they adhesives? Is that another one of those things like fumes and vapors that it really doesn't matter what we call them? They are.
Well, I think it's useful to know what you're working with. I think names can be conceiving and chemical names can be confusing. So what do? We have to come up with some kind of terminology that we can all understand each other with. I think resins is a good word to use. What you're using are cyanoacrylates, which had their start back in the 50s and then evolved into crazy glue and then evolved into a whole wide range of many different kinds of products and formulations used from medical to industrial to many different applications, including lashes. So they're widely studied and widely understood. In fact, some of the most studied chemicals on the planet are from this category. So people say, oh, they don't really know about them. No, that's nonsense. They've been studied by industries everywhere around the world. And so we can call them resins, which is the word for everything blended together. When you blend everything together, you create a resin. But the cyanoacrylate by itself, we call that a monomer. Mono means one, and mer means unit, and a unit is a molecule. So a monomer is just one single molecule of cyanoacrylate. If you could get all of them away from each other and just have one left, that thing that's we still call cyanoacrylate, the smallest it can be is one monomer of cyanoacrylate. Now, in one drop, there are hundreds of trillions of these little monomers. So
Wow.
let's see how small they are. They're really, 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 really tiny. So we can't see them in a microscope, but we can study them, and scientists study them, like I said, all the time. So this is probably the best term to use if you're talking about the ingredient cyanoacrylate, a monomer. But if you talk about the product, I would refer to that as a resin, because it's a monomer blended with other additives, stabilizers, accelerators, plasticizers that make them strong and flexible. So there's a lot of other ingredients that go into making these products up. Some only in a few tenths of a percent, but that doesn't matter. That means they're highly effective, and you don't need very much of it. So they're pretty complex blends, believe it or not. They're not just your old-fashioned mom's crazy glue. Those days are gone. These are highly sophisticated and technical systems.
Well, cyanoacrylate has been used in the lash industry for now 20 years. And so it seems to be like well suited for it. We have kind of made a quick journey into ethyl 2 cyanoacrylates. There's a couple different kinds of cyanoacrylates, but what about non-cyanoacrylate adhesives for lash extensions? A few companies are coming out with non-cyanoacrylate. And then they might be finding, depending on what substance their ingredient they're using, they might find that there's kind of a film um, on top of it as it kind of cures, similar to gel nail is. I think it's gel nails, and then they use an alcohol wipe, to remove that slip. I'm not sure exactly what to call it. It's like a filmy or a slip. If that happens on lashes, with a non-cyanoacrylate.
Well, first off, let's talk about non-cyanoacrylate. What is a cyanoacrylate? Everything in the universe except for cyanoacrylate is non-cyanoacrylate. But water is non-cyanoacrylate. The sky is non-cyanoacrylate. So whenever someone uses non, they're just really trying to make the other thing look bad. So don't be fooled by that. Non-acetone is a great example. Everything that's not acetone is not non-acetone. Gasoline is non-acetone. So does that make non-acetone safe? No. But this is a common thing that we do in our industry. So be very careful about that. The UV cured lashes that I'm most familiar with are cyanoacrylates, resins that just have a photo initiator in there that causes them to cure. If there are other formulations out there, they contain something that's not, and it isn't non. So I would get the safety data sheet. I would look at the safety data sheet and find out what they actually are. Look at the ingredient list.
One that I can think of is isobornyl acetate, I think is yeah.
When you start getting away from cyanoacrylate, you're going to find more sensitivity issues. The cyanoacrylate has a very, very low potential for causing adverse skin reactions, very low. When you start getting into the other kinds of acrylates and methacrylates, the potential for sensitivity goes up. What you were describing before, Jill, is called an inhibition layer. Oxygen on the surface blocks the curing from occurring on the surface, and it creates a film. That's a pretty sure sign that that you're probably using some kind of a UV curing product, because that's common for many kinds of UV curing ingredients. I would encourage any company that's straying away from cyanoacrylates to use extreme caution, because these kind of materials close to the eyelash and to the skin, where the skin is very, very thin, become more likely to cause allergic reactions. This is why cyanoacrylates have been so popular and successful. They're unlikely to cause allergic reactions. Now, people do develop them, but when they do, it's not usually to the cyanoacrylate. It's usually to the preservative in the cyanoacrylate, methyl MEHQ or HQ. One of these things that prevent it from hardening in the bottle. Those are the things that usually cause sensitivity. Someone's become sensitive to HQ in another application, and now they get lashes, and that little tiny amount can trigger their sensitivity. So that's generally what's happening. But I would say if you stray away from the cyanoacrylates, be very, very careful that you know what you're doing, that you're properly curing, you're following all instructions, washing your hands carefully, because the further you get from cyanoacrylates, the more higher potential for adverse reactions there is. If you start seeing an adverse reaction, you should discontinue use immediately. And what would be the signs? Redness, swelling, puffing, irritation, warming, that when it shouldn't be warm, like for a day later. And if the eyelids are swelling, these could be signs of other things. But the first thing you want to start thinking about, of course, send your client to a physician to have them check to determine what the problem is. Could be an infection, that can happen too. But I would be very cautious about using the non-cyanoacrylate materials without further investigation into what's actually being used and why, and what testing's been done to ensure that they're safe. It's a manufacturer or the brand owner's responsibility. I'm gonna say it again. It's the responsibility of every brand owner and every manufacturer in the beauty industry to properly test their products and to provide application instructions for safe use and warnings that prevent them from causing themselves harm. Like, you don't see a cyanoacrylate, it doesn't warn you about keeping it out of the eyes. This is the manufacturer's responsibility. And many brand owners out there are shirking the responsibility and not providing proper instructions for how to safely use their products. And I pray for them, because that puts them in legal liability and can cause long-term problems when you don't do this. It's a responsibility of every manufacturer and every brand owner to tell every user how to properly and safely use their products. Now, I think I said that enough.
Yeah, I think they get away with a blanket for professional use only.
Yeah, no.
And then they don't, but they don't
Professionals
say
have to be told. Professionals have
to
to be told how to use it. Okay.
Yeah.
There's something called class action lawsuits. The industry should be really very careful of these. I get class action attorneys calling me all the time wanting to do some kind of a lawsuit. I usually tell them no. But there's a lot of attorneys out there looking for business, and the beauty industry is ripe for that. And where
Sure.
you're most ripe for it, if you're a brand owner, is not providing proper instructions and proper warnings. That's not a luxury, that's required.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you do see your labels, you need to see the ingredients on a label, and you need to see what else should we be looking for? Should there be little insignias on a cyanoacrylate bottle that we need to see if a manufacturer is doing their due diligence, or just look to
Oh,
the
there should be a
SDS sheet?
There's probably a website, safety data sheets, instructions for use. If you don't get instructions for use, ask for them. If you don't get a safety data sheet, ask for them. You take it upon yourself to ask for these things. A lot of manufacturers figure lashers and nail art, they don't care, they don't want this stuff. So they don't want to waste their time and effort sending out paper that's going to get thrown away. So I understand both sides of the story here. But I think the lashers and nail technicians, if you're out there too, need to step up to the plate and start asking for this information. Just don't expect that, well, if I didn't get it, it must not be there. It probably is there, and you just need to ask for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else want to write into the chat box, or would you like to put your camera on and ask a question? You're more than welcome to. Otherwise, we'll just kind of go on with some of the pre-gathered questions. A lot of people wanted to know, and I kind of asked to touch on it earlier about formaldehyde. It's still the F word, it's still a hot topic.
Yeah, and we have to ask ourselves why. Because there's a lot of people out there that we call activists. I'm an activist. Okay, I'll say right now, I am certainly an activist. But there's two kinds of activists. There are activists that provide information, that inform, and there's activists that use fear to frighten you into doing what they want you to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know who's the more successful? The fear-based people.
Of course.
It's way easier to scare someone into doing something they don't want to do than to educate them into doing something they don't want to do. So many of these groups resort to fear-based tactics. They're out there trying to scare you and tell you this is frightening, that's frightening. Formaldehyde is one of them. It's a poster child for fear-based activism. Formaldehyde exists naturally in the environment. It exists naturally in our body. It's natural and it's organic. What? Of course it is. Does that mean it's safe? No. If you inhale large amounts of formaldehyde, it can harm your nose, it can harm your eyes, it can harm your lungs. But lashers aren't going to be inhaling significant amounts of formaldehyde. Our body uses formaldehyde, by the way, to make proteins. It creates proteins inside of our body. So formaldehyde in small amounts is working in our body. So it's not a death sentence if you smell formaldehyde. That's crazy. There's a safe level for every ingredient that we inhale or eat. And as long as we don't exceed those safe levels, we're not going to be harmed. So keeping your levels of exposure low as possible is the best way to ensure that you're not going to be inhaling excessive amounts of any kind of vapor, cyanoacrylate, the preservatives, formaldehyde, or anything. So I wouldn't be too worried about formaldehyde exposure in this industry, especially if you're keeping your face back away from your work and you're using source capture ventilation. Your risk goes virtually to zero. It's the people who work in little small cramped areas, face right up there, no ventilation, 8, 10 sets in a row. They're going to start getting dizzy-headed, lightheaded, not feeling good, and want to leave the room. These are called warning properties. Formaldehyde has good warning properties. When you start to get high levels of it, it starts to burn your eyes and you want to get away from it. So it almost prevents you from inhaling too much of it. Probably the only source of real formaldehyde exposure in the beauty industry was from the old style hair straighteners, where people were putting methylene glycol onto the hair in products and heating it up, and it could vaporize into formaldehyde. Well, they would put so much on the hair and they would burn it all off with a flat iron. The smoke, you could see the smoke in your room. Well, the government got concerned about that and stepped in, and I think probably rightly so, because there was a lot of improper practices going on. But even that product could have been used safely if there had been proper ventilation. And I keep coming back to that because that is the key. Proper ventilation. Invest in it. It's the best tool you can invest in that's going to give you longevity in your career, and you're going to feel good when you go home at night. You're not going to have watery eyes and plugged up noses and can't sleep at night and all these symptoms that can be early warning signs of overexposure. They'll all go away and you'll have a happy, healthy, safe career.
So in addition to like source capture devices, air cleaners for spaces, or just changing filters out regularly? Like what all can we do?
Really good question. There's actually 3 things you can do. You have ventilation coming into your building. You have your general source ventilation. Clean that once a year, because dust can build up inside there and it can blow dust into your salon, and you get pollen causes eye irritation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm allergic to pollen. So, natural things cause allergies. In fact, people don't understand this. When you become allergic to something, it's because your body thought it was something natural. We become allergic to natural things. Our body doesn't know the difference between synthetic and natural. It just sees we're being exposed, and our body's immune system is designed to protect us against natural poisons and toxins. So sometimes some things we work with can confuse the body and make it think it's under attack. Like nickel. I'm allergic to nickel. Nickel's not dangerous, but my body doesn't know that. And I get a welt if a nickel gets on my skin because my body gets confused. Well, okay, I got to deal with that. I'm allergic to nickel. So I have to stay away from that. But all these things can be, once you develop this allergy, it becomes a real problem. It's better to never develop the allergy by working safely, using proper ventilation, wearing gloves to prevent contact with disinfectant chemicals and things of that nature, because all these things can over time cause overexposure, which is what you should be working to avoid.
Wearing gloves is something that you don't see a lot of lash artists do. And it actually is super important, because I think a lot of lash artists are not, when they're disinfecting their tweezers, they're following their state board's recommendations, whatever their regulatory board is. And it usually involves, QUATS or some kind of hospital grade, EPA registered disinfectant. Well, they're putting their fingers in and out of that. They're getting that on their skin, and that's not meant for skin contact. If you wore gloves when you're doing your disinfection processes, you're going to protect yourself, remove them and throw them away. But also when you're working on your client, I think that we should be using gloves as well.
Well, think about what disinfectants are designed to do. They're designed to kill living things. What? You want to get that
Yeah.
on your skin all the time, over and over again? Not a good idea. It's not going to kill you, but you could start getting ear irritation. You can start getting rashes and redness on your finger. When you
Yeah.
start getting these problems, that's again your body talking to you, saying, look at what you're doing to that area. Pay attention to what you're doing. Why is that area like that? Using gloves to take things out of disinfectant or a pair of tongs, good idea. You want to reduce your exposure to lowest levels possible, lowest practical levels possible. It's really easy to work safely in this industry if you know how. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know how or don't take the time to do it. The onus is on you to work safely. No safety police are going to come into your salon and say, "What are you doing there?" It's really
Yeah.
something you have to want to do yourself. And I would recommend that everyone do that, because the halls are filled with beauty professionals who became too sensitive with their products to work in the industry anymore and had to
Yeah.
get other jobs. Don't let that happen to you.
Yeah. I know hairstylists who develop all kinds of terrible rashes because they were overexposed to their developers, maybe in the dispensary or something like that. So nails, same. Lashes, same.
Overexposure. It's not exposure, it's overexposure. Your body gives you lots of chances, it gives you lots of redos. Don't keep ignoring them, because it'll just get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. I think our clients sometimes will ignore them because they want to be a good client. They want to keep getting their lashes, so they won't report that they maybe had some redness or, heat or puffiness to their eyelids. But if they would to report that, then we could help them to understand and, mitigate those
Excellent.
things.
Excellent point. That's very, very good. Having good client communication and talking to your client and telling them to let you know if anything adverse happens, that you can deal with it. Also, too, one thing to really make sure of, if your client leaves, that there's a huge myth that if you wash the lashes after applying them, that they're going to fall off. If you believe that, try washing one eye and not the other eye and see if one falls off and the other doesn't. If you've applied them properly, they're not going to. And what you're doing is you're removing that residual chemical from the eye area. Some of the thinnest skin on the body is on your eyelashes and right around your eyelashes, the lid area. So we don't want to overexpose that area. So when the client leaves the salon, the lashes should be firmly in place. Gently, of course, wash the lashes, rinse them thoroughly, and tell your client not to be afraid to wash their lashes. You tell them to go 3 or 4 days without washing. That's 3 or 4 more days of exposure to whatever was on their skin. That increases their potential for becoming allergic or developing an infection. I think it's really a harmful myth that people believe. And I would say if you're not washing now, at least experiment with it and see if you can do that. And if you can't, then figure out why. And because there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to wash the lashes after the application is complete.
So, something that I'm very interested in, and quite a lot of people in the beauty industry are interested in, skincare experts as well, is hypochlorous acid, HOCl, and using that to help keep the areas clean. That could be great as a spray cleanser, maybe after going to the gym or what have you, killing the bacteria or pollutants or whatever that are on the eyelids and eyelashes.
Yeah,
What do you think about?
that gives a good opportunity to talk about disinfection, sterilization, sanitation.
Okay.
There's 3 levels of what we call contamination control. That's just the general. The lowest level of all is cleaning. Cleaning. We clean, clean, clean. It's low, but you know what? It does the best job of all of them, because cleaning removes probably 99% of the pathogens from the surface of the skin. Just simple cleaning and rinsing. Now we got that 1% left. Well, that could cause infection. So that's why we have disinfectants. Disinfectants come in and they raise that from 99% to 99.99%. Wow, that's pretty good, but it's not sterile. Sterilization goes to 100%. So the difference between sanitation and disinfection and sterilization is very, 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 very slim. Okay, so if you are disinfecting properly, you're probably achieving about the same results as you would sterilizing. But none of these will work if you don't properly clean. This properly cleaning gets that 90% of the stuff off of there and makes it easier for the disinfectants to work. Now, what Jill is talking about is an antiseptic, which kind of falls between cleaning and disinfection. Disinfectants aren't good for your skin. We just said you don't want to stick your finger in disinfectant. Antiseptics are kind of diluted down disinfectants that are safe for skin use. And hypochlorous acid is certainly one of those and is well known for that application. And it certainly will aid your cleaning effort and help you keep your area more sanitized, which sanitize means to clean and reduce the pathogens to levels that health officials consider to be safe. It's not sterilization. So don't think, well, I'm sanitizing my implements when I put them in the autoclave. No, that's sterilizing. Then if you put liquid, that's disinfectant. And if you wash them, then you're cleansing. And if you apply something like the hypochlorous acid, that's again, in between though, that's an antiseptic. So understand these terms, make sure you're using them carefully. The main reason to understand these terms is because your ignorance of them will be used against you. People who are selling you things that you probably don't really need or want to buy, they'll use these words in ways that can be confusing or tricky. So make sure you understand the definitions of them, because I guarantee you the marketers who are selling you these products, they know the definitions and they know that you don't. So make sure you do.
Yeah, marketing terminology versus regulatory terminology is always a very confusing thing, like pH balance, hypoallergenic, organic, all of those terms they lead us to believe that one product is like the champion over others, when it's kind of just a term developed by the industry itself.
Well, see, I have a whole chapter in my book. Jill talked about my book, where I have a whole chapter in my book dedicated to this, because there's so much misleading marketing and misinformation out there. And because people in the beauty industry don't understand these terms, I wrote a whole chapter to help people understand how not just how to understand these terms, like all natural, organic,
Yes.
what do these things mean? They're used so deceptively sometimes that it's
Even to the point where we're looking for new terms to bring in, like bioavailable or biocompatible, and things like that.
Marketing used to be the truth well told. Now it's not. It's many marketers think they have a license to lie. I hate to say that, but I don't hate to say that. That's the truth. Many marketers think that gives them a license to deceive and lie. So be careful. Make sure you understand and ask questions. I have a whole chapter in my book on how to ask questions. Many people, they ask a question and it gets answered and they go, okay, they take that answer. No, that's the first step. I give you a whole chapter on how to ask questions to get to the truth, get to the facts, and how not to be pushed away. Because many times marketers don't want to answer questions. They just want to give you a marketing spiel that tells you really nothing. So the more you know, the more you're going to be able to protect yourself and your clients and choose the best products.
Yeah. I think a lot of the questions that I have been getting from our interested participants, or what have you, people in the lash industry, have a lot to do with the test results that everybody is. We're all trying to read these test results, like the EN and IEC 62471, the photo biology testing, the radiometric testing. We're not really trained in those areas, so we're kind of trying to learn a little bit or enough about it to read these things. They're kind of hard for us to navigate. When we know about SDS, about safety data sheets, that's going to help us with disposal methods, spillage, all those things, what ingredients we're looking at, firefighting measures. But what about those other safety reports that we can now get our hands on? They're important, but what should we pay attention to? And what should we just go ahead and let be part of the bringing to market safely process?
Well, you bring up a really important point, Jill, and I think it's useful to discuss. Most of this the onus is on the brand owner. It's the brand owner's responsibility to read and understand this information and interpret it, because they're the ones that are putting the product into commerce. They're the ones that are putting the name on the product and making it available for. So they're the ones who are responsible for how that product works, how it doesn't work, instructions, safety, all that. They're guaranteeing you that they've done all that work. So if you're a brand owner out there and you haven't done that work, you might want to get busy, because it is your responsibility to do these things. The other thing that I think the brand owner should be doing is not try to figure this out on their own. Hire a consultant. There's a lot of technical consultants out there that can help you understand this information and make sure you're doing the right thing. You want to do all this now, not when you get a letter from an attorney. And believe me, there's class action attorneys out there all the time just shaking down companies, sending letters saying, we're going to sue you if you don't give me, it's money. And companies just fold because they're not really prepared. You want to be prepared. Talk to some scientific expert. There's many of them out there that do safety data sheets, that do this kind of work for the beauty industry, that can help you understand this data and make sense of it. But just don't stick it in a drawer and forget about it, because it's your responsibility as the person selling the product to understand this and give the proper information to the people who purchase your product, because they don't have the training to understand this. We can't expect the lash artist to read a UV report on the safety of a lamp and understand it. It's the seller's responsibility to do that.
Right. I think we just get confused because it's something new. So was lash extensions themselves in the beginning. You're going to put what on their eyes? You're going to have pointy tweezers. You're going to what? You're going to use cyanoacrylate. We're over that. But every new thing that comes along, whenever there's, kind of a disruption to the force, things get kind of crazy and emotion filled. And I think that every lash artist doesn't need to have a printed out copy of a report. But of course, if you ask for it, I think that it should be provided to you. SDS is by law, you have to have it in your salon. But what about the safety data reports, the photobiology?
There is information for everyone on a safety data sheet. So I agree they should be made available. Unfortunately, strangely as it sounds, in Europe, there's no requirement for beauty professionals to have safety data sheets, which Europe touts how safe they are, which is, to me, incredibly foolish that they don't require that. When it comes to the lamp reports, I think they're not something that lashers will ever be able to use. You'll look at them and you'll just be confused by them. That's why it's best to have if they want to see them, fine, but don't expect you're going to interpret it. It's best to have them reviewed by an expert who understands what all these numbers.
Right. Well, I think the one thing that they would like to see is that, are you in risk category 0? Are you risk category 1? Are you risk category 2? That's kind of informative. Like, should they trust to buy?
That's a bottom line conclusion. That's what and most of these that I've seen are in the very low risk category, especially the small little devices. The ones I said I'm still concerned a little bit about are the big, powerful units. But the data I've seen shows that all these are in a very low risk category. The client has got their eyes covered. If you're wearing some polycarbonate UV absorbing glasses, keeping your face back, I think the risk from UV is very low from the devices for the reports I've seen.
A question coming in: do some LED adhesives cure under the light faster than others? Example, a 1-second adhesive versus a 3-second. And also, should you hold the light longer to make sure it's fully cured, or should you alter the distance? Like, where?
I love those questions.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the first part?
All right. Do some LED adhesives say that they're 1-second adhesives versus 3-second adhesives?
We talked about photo initiators.
Yeah.
The more TPO you put in there, the faster it will cure. The problem is you put too much TPO in there, it can get warm and get over hot. So you want to balance, not too much TPO, not too little TPO, and that's going to depend on the lamp being used. So the lamp being used should be balanced to the TPO in the gel or whatever photo initiators in the gel, so the two of them work together to ensure it's going to properly cure and it's not going to get too hot. Because obviously if they get too warm, it can damage the lash or even burn someone. Not likely burn their skin, but could damage the lash. So you want to make sure you're using the right lamp with the right resin. And again, the second cure is something that's decided by the formulator. The formulator determines how quickly they want the cure, and that's how much photo initiator they'll put in there, so it goes more quickly. Now, the good thing about these products, they are extremely thin layers. It's very easy to cure through very thin layers of resin. Nail manufacturers have a bigger problem. They're curing through thick layers of UV gel. Very difficult, especially if it's colored. Like, I've never seen a black or a red or a brown UV gel cure to a very high degree because all that colorant blocks the UV and prevents it from penetrating. But that's not really much of a problem with lashers. Even though the material is black, there's such a thin layer, it's more than likely not going to be a risk of undercuring.
I think it looks black because there's a lot of it together in a drop. But
Well,
if you look at, like, if you swipe it out like with a paintbrush on paper, you would see it's translucent, black colored.
You try to cure a blob of it, you would see it wouldn't cure all the way through. But because it's spread out so thin, they're pretty easy to cure. And that's not much of a challenge for lashes. It's a challenge for nail companies, not for lash companies.
Yeah. And then the second half of that question was, should you hold the light or like either hold the light longer or, make it turned on longer to make sure it's fully cured?
You should follow manufacturer's directions. The manufacturer should do this study ahead of time and find out for you. And they should tell you, here's exactly what you do to ensure it's properly cured. I don't use the word fully cured because people think that means 100%. None of these cure to 100%, nor do they need to. They cure 80, 90%. That's pretty good. They're all tangled up like a knot in a Rastafarian's hair. That's not going to come untangled. And once all these polymers lock all up together at high levels, they become properly cured. So the best word to use, I think, is properly, not fully. And properly cured is going to be determined by your manufacturer. They're going to design that lamp and that resin so that the two of them work together for the time specified by the brand owner that they will properly cure. It's the manufacturer's and the brand owner's responsibility to give you that information, and it's your responsibility to follow that information exactly.
I think a lot of people forget too that we should be properly curing our adhesives before we throw them away in our trash can. Like when we're cleaning up between clients and stuff, instead of throwing the liquidy, adhesives into the trash with paper products and what have you.
Cyanoacrylates is they'll harden on their own if you don't do that.
Yeah, but the UV curable ones, you just need to shoot your light at it. Then it becomes,
even if you don't, they'll eventually cure on their own and harden up. They won't stay liquidy forever. They'll harden into a mass eventually. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing what you said. It's an easy, quick and easy way to dispose of them.
Right. I think a lot of people used to be afraid that in the trash can, if there's, paper products in there, like or aesthetic 4x4s, aesthetic wipes, things like that a cyanoacrylate would react and kind of smoke, against them. So there were so many.
That brings up another great point. Empty your trash often. Once you throw something in the trash, it's not gone. It's just down there. And
that's true.
Rising up into your air. Empty your trash often. Then it's gone.
Yeah. Very good.
And use a metal trash can with a self-closing lid.
Yeah. So any adhesive, any eyelash adhesive that has the photo initiator is a UV LED adhesive. There's no like one is and one isn't, or proper.
They all UV cure. Any of these there's no nail. I know of no nail product or no lash product that cures by visible light. We see visible light, but that's because the lamps emit both UV and visible. Yeah. But the photo initiators absorb UV light, and they turn UV light into the energy that causes the polymerization. White light, the visible light can have a small effect, but it's like 5 or 6%, 10%, small. UV is what's doing the majority of the work here. Now, a lot of people say that LED is not UV. Well, I have an LED TV and it's not UV, I know, but I'm not going to cure my nails on my TV. So LED is just a kind of a bulb. It's not a kind of a light. Remember that. These are UV curing adhesive, UV curing gels, and you find that out real quickly by putting a flashlight up to them and seeing that they don't cure.
Right. Right. So when we talk about wavelengths, you just posted an excerpt from your book on your Facebook page, which was super instructional and a very understandable way to get the concept of wavelengths. But it's the wavelengths of these LEDs that work with the different photo initiators, right?
Well, depending on the wavelength is how much energy the UV is carrying. And the TPO or the photo initiator is very picky. It just doesn't want any old energy. It's got to have the energy, the right energy. So it looks at the wavelength. If that's the wrong wavelength, it just goes right past it. When the right wavelength hits it, whoop, it absorbs that and turns that into energy to cause polymerization. So the photo initiator has to match the output of the lamp. The lamp has to have the wavelengths, not just the wavelengths, but the intensity needed to activate that photo initiator. So it's about wavelength, intensity, and time. Those are the three factors that have to be considered when you're talking about UV curing something. They all have to be proper if you want to have proper curing.
Got it. Got it. So a 405 wavelength isn't necessarily better than a 395. It's a range anyway, right? Even if a manufacturer says this is a 405 nanometer wavelength LED, it's a range.
Well, first off, it doesn't matter what the LED is. It matters what the photo initiator is. So the product determines what lamp should be used. This is a huge mistake nail technicians make. They just go out and buy a lamp. Wait, the product determines what lamp should be used, not the seller and not the nail technician or the lasher. You should use the lamp that was designed for that product, because the intensity and the wavelengths are matched together. It's more important when it comes to nails than it is for lashes. But I want to stress that in general as a concept, the gel determine or the product determines what lamp is needed. And that's because of the photo initiator, the concentration and the type of photo initiator used.
Got it. I have a question coming in. Most of the brands advertise that UV lash systems are safer because the allergy risk or sensitivity risk is smaller than with regular cyanoacrylate curing by moisture and temperature. Is that true? Because with UV adhesives, they actually cure faster.
I can't see how that's true. I don't think it means that one is unsafe on the other. I think they're both probably safe. The problem is when gels first came out, all the gel manufacturers were bashing the liquid and powder companies. And then when cyanoacrylate dips came out, they were all bashing the gels. This is crazy. Our industry, we're the beauty industry. We shouldn't be bashing other companies and making other companies seem dangerous. It's like 14 free. What 14 free now? Does that mean the people with 8 free nail polish, they got all these dangerous things in there? No, it's a terrible thing that the beauty industry is doing. They're burning themselves to death by all this free stuff. Free of this, free of that. We should be telling people what's in the product, what's not in the product.
Right. Oh my goodness, my mind just blew open.
We're all turned around here. We're all turned around here. And it's lashers and nail technicians' responsibility to start asking these questions. And I talk about that a lot in my book. Don't be distracted by what's not in the product. Pay attention to what is in the product.
Because that's what you have to work with. That's your tool.
You're working with. It doesn't matter what's not in it, unless it's something you're allergic to and you're looking specifically for that. Gluten-free, for instance. If you're allergic to gluten, well, you want to find gluten-free. But unless you have a known sensitivity, I would avoid being influenced by these free from claims.
Okay. Can you speak to when we're washing the lashes, whether it's pre-service or post-service, and we're rinsing away, saline versus distilled water versus filtered water versus tap water?
Well, I think a lot of people make a big deal out of saline because it seems like it's fun and interesting. But if you just take water and put a little bit of salt in it, you've got saline. And that's all saline is water with a little bit of salt in it. If you believe that little bit of salt is helpful, okay, that's not going to harm anything. But I don't see how a little bit of salt in the water is going to rinse the skin any cleaner or any fresher. And I don't think that tap water, is going to harm the skin. So
Yeah.
I think it's all about rinsing properly and getting it all out of the lashes, so the lashes are clean when they at the end of application. I think it's more about that than what you use.
Yeah, maybe it has something to do with because of the salt value that's in our tears, that they think that it's kind of more the same, more compatible, more similar. But we're not opening their eyes. So,
Well, I mean, think about swimming. If that were true, then swimming in the oceans could be better than swimming in a pool. Well, there are probably some people who believe that, and there are probably some people who could argue that, say, well, the chlorine, but think about water. It's water. It's rinsing. The goal of the wash is to rinse the lashes. If you don't use saline, I don't think you're making a big mistake. If you use saline, well, good for you. That's what you want to do. I don't think it really matters from my perspective.
okay, very good, very good. That makes it clear then. So the point is that we have to rinse all of the residue of the soap away. That's very important. We can't leave that on the skin or on the eyelashes.
That's carrying away all the contaminants. The soap molecules are binding with the bacteria and the contaminants, and they make them easy to lift off the lash. So when you wash them away, they all wash away down the sink, and you get to that 99% I talked about. That cleansing will get you. You want to get to that 99%.
So rinsing well is the point, is the most important point. Very good. Does anybody else have anything that they want to write into the chat? Thank you for those of you who have been writing in. And I don't see any activity in the chat right now. And I just want to say thank you, Doug, for joining us. And I want to also, for anyone who's joining towards the end, want to say that the book that you've just written is for the nail industry, but it's for the beauty industry. There's so much that applies to what we do as lash artists. So I hope you guys will take a look at that book.
And join my Facebook page, please. Doug Schoon on Facebook. I have Doug Schoon's Brain and Doug Schoon. Most people join Doug Schoon, and it's open. You can ask questions. I love getting questions from lashers. And happy lashing.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I know it's time is the most valuable commodity these days, and we appreciate you, Doug. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
I love it.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for attending.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.